Not really washed out. So we're hoping this works. We tried this once before, and we were just talking. We got about 12, 15 minutes in, and then everything just shut off on us. So we'll try to remember that the camera is over there. Because we're looking at the chat over there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think like most of the Midwest, we're all in snow right now. So it's a lot brighter than we thought it was going to be, but we kind of have a blizzard going on.
Yeah, there's whiteout. It's whiteout conditions. The counties west of us are all in whiteout conditions right now. So
it's coming.
Yeah,
it's coming over here.
Anyway, so we asked for some Q&A questions through Facebook, Reddit, places like that, and we're going to actually do these at a different time and make a video of it. But we thought we'd just go ahead and try it live since we can't go outside because of the weather conditions. So we'll see how well this goes. Looks like the volume's working okay. So go ahead and get started. I don't expect a lot of people to be in the chat because, like I said, this was just kind of an impromptu. Let's just do it.
And it's still middle of the workday.
Yeah,
for a lot of people. So
sometimes we get our days confused and we think it's the weekend and it's not. And people can come out and.
Well, when you have a farm and you're self-employed, every day is kind of a work day. So when you have those little moments like we have right now, it's determined by the weather. Plus, it's we're in the holidays, so things kind of move around that way. We
don't have a set schedule.
No,
that's what we're getting at
all the time.
So I'll get the questions real quick. The first one was from Acey 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 on Reddit. They said, "Why did you want to go off grid?" Nat and I both grew up in the country, and we've just always enjoyed nature, and just felt like we needed to preserve it. We're kind of, I wouldn't consider us quite environmentalists, but we were definitely environmentally conscious.
Yes.
So we decided that, if we had the opportunity to build a house, which we're doing right now, that we would go off grid. It just seemed like.
Yeah. And originally we did look into being on grid, but it was actually cheaper for us to go off grid. And we're really glad that we did. Because we just feel a lot better about it. And if you have the opportunity to do it and you can, it was something that we wanted to do eventually. We just didn't know if we'd be able to literally pull the plug and go all the way through with it. But we're very happy we did. And even today, we have power and we got notification. We got notification from his mom that they're out of power. And there's a lot of places that don't have power right now with the storm. Yeah, the storm that's going on right now has got, I don't know what the winds are, but it's really windy. It's -1 right now. The wind chills are like -35, -40 something out right now. I'd say that's uncommon for Kansas, but sometimes it isn't. I mean, 2 years ago we got down to -18, so maybe that's just the new normal. Yeah, the weather's crazy.
Yeah, the temperature is -18. I don't know what the wind chills were back then, but it was cold.
When it gets that cold, it's just cold.
Doesn't matter, it's cold.
So anyway, this was just something that we eventually wanted to do. Even before we bought the farm, we had looked into the previous house that we lived in. We had looked into different ways to try to do something with that as well. The problem with, and this may depend on where you are, some companies charge you anyway if you're off grid. So it's really not a great incentive.
They charge you for the convenience of
they charge
hooking
you
up the power if you want to at some point.
Yeah, some places they will give you credit back, not where we are. So if you're hooked up to the grid, and even if you're feeding energy back in, they will still charge you a fee. So it's there's no incentive there. So we're really glad that we did, and hopefully things will continue to change in the right direction with that.
We also wanted to do the channel to kind of help inspire other people to maybe want to go off grid too, just to see that it really hasn't been that difficult for us. I mean, I didn't have any experience with solar or rainwater collection or any of this stuff when we started. And I pretty much just learned online, watching other people and tackling it from there. So
lots of reading.
People can do it.
Lots of reading. Yeah.
Yep. The same lady asked another question. I'm assuming it's a lady. Asked, what's been the easiest and the hardest part? The hardest part has definitely been finding the land. We searched for a long time.
We've been looking. I mean, we've been together for a long time, and we've been looking for as long as we've been together. And either there's just nothing out there, or it was so expensive, and land has not gotten any cheaper. And I mean, if anybody's looking for it, it's crazy how much things cost. So that's the hardest part, is just finding a piece of land.
Yeah, we were very lucky just to find this land. We happened to stumble across it, and we mentioned this in other videos, but the lady who owned the land at the time wanted to go to a family. So when we actually purchased it and closed on it and word got out that we had bought it, the farmers were not very happy.
No,
they were
like, we didn't even know that was for sale.
Pretty,
well, they
pretty grumpy that we got it and they didn't, because farmers around here will snatch up anything right
Yes.
away.
Yeah, they will.
As far as the easiest part, I'm not sure anything has been, really easy. I mean, it's all work. Luckily, we enjoy the work.
I think the easy part is just how well we've fit into it, if that makes sense, because this is something that it's kind of part of who we are, how we are. So that we haven't had to do a major reset on our mindset to get into this lifestyle. Yes, there's been some changes, but I think that's probably the easiest thing since we grew up in the country, since we have some experience with living this way. I guess that's been maybe the easiest part for us.
Yeah, living in the country, as far as living off grid, that we have had some adjustments with water consumption, power consumption, things like that. But as far as living out in the country, we're used to that. That's not a big deal at all. Third question from the same person was, how do you do internet off grid, or is the grid only about power, not internet? I did a bit of research on this, because I know this is a pretty touchy subject with some people. The meaning of off grid is just not depending on public utilities. And a public utility is your electric, gas, and water. Things like internet, cable, cell phone service, stuff like that is not a regulated public utility. So technically, if you go by those rules, then we are off grid. We do have propane, but the National Propane Association has lobbied hard to keep them not a public utility, so they're not regulated by governments and things like that. They still have rules to follow, but they're not. They don't have set pricing. They don't have to.
There's also not a monopoly in your area, because that's something that is big in this area. Is if you're in a certain area, you're stuck with that company no matter what. Yeah, there's one power company. There's one water company. Yeah, and that's it. We have probably 4 or 5 different propane companies we can choose from. I mean, same with internet. We could go with different internet. We could go with different phone services, things like that. So we have internet, but we are, and really that's the only line that runs to the house is the internet, and I can't believe they ran it out to here. We're very impressed they did that. A lot of rock. But it's solar power, it's water collection, propane. Those are really the only things that we use. We did our own septic system, stuff like that. So nothing really beyond that. So as far as being off grid, we consider ourselves off grid because we're not hooked up to any public utility, but we do have internet. We have internet. Yes, I guess more of a modern off grid. I think the idea of off grid has changed and is continuing to change as it is becoming more widespread, more used, and more cost effective too. So it's not living in a I don't know. We first looked into just a solar panel back when we first got together, and it was 10 times more expensive than it is now. I mean, we're down to like $1 a watt or less. It was, $100 a watt back when I think we first started looking. It was crazy. So a new question from Nickle Fritz. Yeah, from Reddit also. What do you consider when choosing land? How did you navigate the building process from a permitting standpoint? We really wanted to have timber, and we wanted to have live water, so pond or creek, things like that. We got the creek. We're still hoping to. There's a dry pond that we'll expand on at some point. But the creek that's a huge one. That creek runs all the way through the property. We're really lucky, and it's not a dry creek either. It's pretty much, it got kind of dry this summer, but it's pretty much always wet and always flowing. So we have a nice creek to go down and play in. We've swam in it. The girls have swam in it several times, but we do want to do a pond still. So we had to have timber. We had to have water was our main things. We also wanted to be in an area we could be isolated from neighbors, things like that. We didn't want to look out our window and see someone. So we built pretty much right in the middle of the 160 acres. We're surrounded by trees. We really can't see anything at night, which is nice. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, because we don't live as far in the country as we did growing up. I mean, we're from different towns, but it's still nice to be outside of the light pollution and everything, so you can see the stars. You can really enjoy that.
We also wanted the land to be able to produce some sort of income, so it does have crops on it. So we had that rented to a farmer. It's an organic farmer, so they don't use any pesticides or things like that. When we first bought the farm, there was a traditional farmer on there. They retired a year.
They retired in 2020. Yeah, so they retired when the pandemic hit. So,
yeah.
And then we were able to find somebody local to take over. So that was good.
And I'm sorry, I really thought you'd be able to see the snow behind us.
It's just
white. I mean, behind us is.
Yes.
We can see the snow if we turn around, but you guys, I don't think you can see it at all.
It's going this way.
Yeah, it's blowing straight that way. So anyways, we got everything that we needed, that we wanted in the land. Again, we're just really lucky to be able to find it. As far as permits, our county is really relaxed as far as that goes. And this is going to vary, based on where you are.
Yeah, it'll vary depending on the town you're in, the county you're in, the state you're in.
If you're in a town, you might as well forget it.
Yeah, so don't take what we're saying as what it is in your area, because even the next county over, which is not very far away, they have very different rules. Or even if we went 10 minutes that way.
But then we go one county to the south, and it's literally the Wild Wild West.
You can do whatever you want. Don't tell
Our county
anybody.
has some rules, but the next county south is like crazy.
You're nothing, yeah. So yeah, it just really kind of depends. So the only permits that we needed here was the basic building permit and then the septic tank.
Yeah,
we had to do that.
We only had one inspection. That was the septic tank inspection, and literally the guy walked out, just looked at what I had dug and goes, "Oh, you're good," and left. I mean, it was ridiculous. He was literally here for 5 seconds. He pulled up, got out, said, "Looks good," turned around and left. So it was pretty crazy. So
now on the septic, you want to talk about that?
I had to get it. Well, I had to go get my license for it. We didn't want to pay someone to do it. We were trying to do everything ourselves out here. So I went to the county, took the test, and passed. Had to pay $200, I think, for the test and license fee, and then did my own septic. So it really wasn't too difficult.
So it was cheaper than having somebody. And this is kind of going back about something being easy versus hard. Is this is how Tim is. So instead of saying, I'm going to go hire somebody, he's like, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to go study and take the test and do it myself.
And that has slowed us down a bit, because instead of asking for help, we figure it out. We just do it.
And that's something we talked about a lot too, is like, okay, would it have been,
hey ladies,
would it have been easier to hire somebody out, and maybe in the long run more cost effective? Because when you're paying for everything and doing everything yourself, there comes a point where it's like, okay, if we had done this 6 months ago and paid somebody, would we be ahead of the game had we done that?
Yeah, our house would be 100% complete if we would just hire stuff out, but we're stubborn that way.
Yeah.
So Heather and Kim just came in. So I know we don't pull up people live stream, because this was we just decided to do this real quick.
Yeah.
But this will be on our page too, so people can watch later. So everyone who's written a question on here, I'll go ahead and email them or post back to them that the Q&A is out. But Kim or Kimmy's over at Waking Up Country there in northern Idaho, and they're building it's a container home with some extra parts and pieces to it, I guess. Is that right, girls? And then Waking Up Country is Heather's channel. But they're two ladies who met in the military, reconnected. They're great friends. They live up there, and they're a lot more isolated than we are, I think. Yeah. But they've got some beautiful views. It's amazing.
Check them out.
Did we finish that one?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yeah. Now we didn't do all the questions, right? Because there was a lot that people threw out at us.
Yeah, we had some questions that we either had already answered or were inappropriate.
Yeah.
So
we're not going to do the inappropriate
not going to do the inappropriate ones.
Sorry.
J99P Wrangler from Reddit said, are we planning a possible greenhouse?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So when it was actually funny when we first came out to look at the land, it was very overgrown. And I think it was
really
second.
overgrown.
It was like second or third time we came out here. It's like, holy cow, there's a basement. There's a rock wall. There's a basement. There had been a house that was on here that was moved off probably in the 80s.
Yeah.
I think. And it's actually a couple miles away. Anyway, so the basement is still there. And the plan is we did clean it out because there was a lot of trash. There was a lot of debris in it. Because this farm has been, nobody's lived here for decades, but there had been cattle and different things on it. And unfortunately, when there's land that's like that, a lot of trash accumulates. And
they were using the home site as a dump. So they were just literally dumping everything into what was the basement of the old house. And the basement's just a rock basement. It's not like a typical foundation. It was probably built in the 20s, probably in the 20s. And there's tons of rock out here. So it was just a rock foundation with some plaster put over it. And that was their basement.
So we ended up, we did have to fill in half of it, a quarter of it.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's where the garage opens out to the backside because Tim wanted to pull through for the camper. And the other half has the stairs going out, the cellar stairs. And we are going to make that as, there's a word for it, like a winter garden. A winter garden. We do want to do that. Keep talking about it. We'll get to it. That's on the list. It's
about 60% below grade. Yeah. And being below grade like that will help to keep it warmer in there. Yeah. So we can get our seed starts and stuff like that going in the early spring to help us get a jump on our garden.
And we have farmers markets. There's 2 farmers markets. One, Pittsburgh, 20 minutes away, and the other one's about 15 minutes away. So we have 2 farmers market options, and then plus there's restaurants that like I sell eggs to a local restaurant. So there are restaurants that are interested in, if we get to that point.
Yeah. Kimmy just asked said she was bummed they couldn't come visit us during the Okie Fest. Oh. We all went to a homesteading festival homesteading fair, I guess, whatever, down in Oklahoma last year, and met up with Heather and Kim down there, and they had to get back home, so they weren't able to stop by on the way back up. But next time you're in town or in this area, you're welcome.
Come by.
Maybe we'll get up to your guys' place.
I do still sell like the soaps and everything. So I do sell those. And the jellies. Do you still farmers market? You still sell things you make? Yes, I do. Yeah,
she sells online, has her own website.
Yeah, and then
so a lot of the videos is me working on stuff, and we had people ask why Natalie's not there. Well, it's because she's working on her own stuff. I got her craft kitchen up and going, and so she's in there. The lab, we call it.
Laboratory. If anybody remembers Dexter's Lab, that's where that came from. Laboratory. Something to keep in mind with all of this is we both still work. We both still work pretty much full time.
And we homeschool our kids.
So so the girls have school, and then also doing the other creations and things, going to farmers markets and stuff like that. So this is not all that we do.
No.
This is a huge part of what we do. And then we have the animals and livestock and things like that. So we're busy all the time.
Yeah, we never stop, Kim. I know what our girls are always trying to get us to stop and
okay, here's another, actually, this is probably the biggest reason why I'm not in videos is because I'm a teacher too. I taught for dance for 20 years and I taught at the college level, and I have the tendency to ramble and I go into education mode, and Tim will ask me a question. He's like, I'm going to ask you this, like I'm doing right now. He's like, I'm going to ask you this and I want you to tell me. And then he's like, oh my God, Natalie, stop. Because I go into teacher mode. I have to tell the backstory and all the whatever. So that's how I'm wired.
So I was a military police officer when I was in, and we always joked about how people would be talking normal like I am, and they'd get on the radio, and they'd say, and their whole voice and tone and manners and everything would change. That's how Natalie is. So when I turn the camera on and ask her a question, she goes in teacher mode. And everything changes. It's hilarious.
Yeah. So I feel like there's so much information. I think this happens the older you get. Somebody did ask, I hope you didn't put that on there. Somebody asked how old I am. I'm old enough to say no, but I'm also old enough to know a lot of things that I think are important. My girls and right. Valerie's looking at me.
Yeah, she's staring at us like
we call them, because we've got a 20-minute drive to town where we go for work and the kids' activities and things like that. And we have car talks where the girls know a lot of things. It's like, ask me a question, I'll tell you all about it. So that's why I'm not in a lot of things, and we're busy. We're busy.
Yeah, I was an MP in the Army for 8 years. Yeah. Kimmy and Heather just asked that.
Yeah.
So next question is, I just wet my plants. Is the username from Reddit. They said, how does one cope with isolation, vulnerability, and lack of immediate help?
So, and we kind of said this earlier, we grew up farther out in the country than we are now. So it's kind of like we were kind of used to it.
The closest town was like 45 minutes away.
Yeah. So the thing about it though, is with the way internet and a lot of, I mean, we have instant communication now. We didn't have that growing up, but we have really instant communication way to look things up. So we can, if there's an emergency, actually we've got 2 hospitals. One's about 15 minutes away, one's 20 minutes away. I mean, when Tim, if you look back at when we were doing the by snacks. I know we yeah, lots of snacks. Like when Tim had the issue where I had taken the ER, this was when we were doing framing. And I called the county sheriff's department. I said, hey, we're coming in. And they said, okay, we've told the police officers to watch out for your car. We went straight to the ER. I've got, Tim's sister's a nurse. A good friend of mine is a pediatrician. So if there's things like that, we call. We're good friends with a lot of farmers. So if there's an issue with the farm, we know who we can call, and we know that they would be out here in a heartbeat to help. Our vet, we've been going to the same vet. Our
vet's awesome.
Yeah, our vet is amazing. If you've got to have a good vet, and we have a country vet who is nonsense.
He's not a city guy.
He's not. Okay, this is something that he will not hold your hand, and he will yell at you if you need it, which is fine. But we trust him, and if I need to call him, we actually had to take a goat in a few days ago. She's doing fine, but we know that he will handle it. And he
manhandled that goat.
He took care of it, but it's taken care of. But the thing is you have to have these lifelines of people, connections that you have made, and people that you can trust to talk to. So, vulnerability, I think because we grew up in the country, we're comfortable here. And I know, I was actually talking to another parent a while back who had grown up in a very large city. And she had said that she didn't feel comfortable in the country, where it's like, we don't really feel comfortable in a big city. We lived years ago, we lived in Kansas City, and we were only there for 5 months. Because it wasn't
not our thing.
It wasn't our thing. And some people, like my siblings and his siblings, they love it. And that's great. But it wasn't the best fit for us, where, with others, it's not. Now, as far as isolation goes, I don't feel we're isolated because of the way the world is now with communication. And you can call up anybody, talk to anybody. Going to the farmer's market, that's a huge one. The girls are in 4-H, so going and doing that and seeing people, and so there's definitely ways to see people and chat with people.
Yeah, we're afraid of people, and other people are afraid of animals.
Yeah, we grew up in the country. Going back there, I remember we've actually talked about this, when we would sit outside at the end of our driveways waiting for the school bus at like 6 a.m. It was dark, and you could hear the coyotes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, you kind of grew up with that. And
yeah, it was a pretty good walk to the end of the driveway. You'd be out there, and it's pitch black, and you'd be out there in snowstorms like this, and bundled up, just waiting for the bus to come.
Bus, yes.
Yeah, that was no problem. But boy, I couldn't imagine sitting on a corner in New York City or something waiting for a bus.
No.
Mjc Moore from Facebook. He said, what is needed, and what would your approximate total cost be for the rainwater collection system? So a rainwater collection.
I know. How did we survive back then? Holy cow.
Drinking from the garden hose.
I know, drinking from the garden hose. And,
what did Sydney do when we got? She drank from the stock tank?
Yeah, she drank out of the stock tank. But, I was telling Tim about that. It's like, we didn't have a pool growing up. We
just swam in the stock tank.
We had a big stock tank, and I know a lot of times it was green.
It's covered in slime and nasty.
Good childhood.
So anyways, back to the question is, what is needed, and what would be approximate total cost for the rainwater collection system? Our whole system was under $5,000. So that was the tanks. The filter system was the most expensive. That was over $2,000. It was $2,400, I think, for the system we got. And that was an Aquasana Rhino. And that's primarily meant for wells.
We do have wells. We just haven't.
We haven't hooked them up
We haven't dealt with those yet. Yeah, that's on
we
the
have
list.
one well. We tried to hook up one well and we broke it. I think we collapsed the pipe, but it was in pretty rough shape.
It was.
So the next one's in much better shape, and I've got the lines run down to it, but I just haven't got around to doing anything with it yet.
Next spring's.
And we haven't tested the water yet, so we don't even know if the water is usable. But
well, we can use it
figure
for watering
later.
trees, and there's other things we can use for. Anyway, back to the rainwater water collection.
So we have two 2,500 gallon tanks, the filters, the pump, the expansion tank, all the fittings and piping. Everything was under $5,000. And of course, I did all the labor and all the install and everything myself, so that saved a lot. If you were hiring it out, I couldn't imagine, because labor is usually, you might as well double or more than double your cost if you're going to hire someone to do it. Didn't know anything about how to do it when we started out. I did a lot of research. I found out that the best research comes from Australia. There are other, I guess, what they call them, second or third world countries that do rainwater collection all the time, but there's just not the information out there because they don't have the universities and the study and things like that to get it done. But Australia,
they're amazing.
A
Their
top world
studies,
country, and they've got amazing information from Australia.
Yeah, so
there's a lot of misinformation in the U.S. on rainwater collection, and a lot of it's just because there's a stigma of you're drinking rainwater, and
it's kind of back to the monopoly of utility companies too. Mm-hmm. So sorry, but I think a lot of it is there because I read a lot of articles too, and a lot of it was kind of scare tactics. I feel. So,
wow, your tanks were $2,600 each. Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah, ours were like $850, I think, at Home Depot.
That was
what,
year?
tanks.
2000. That was in 2000.
Yeah, I'm sure prices have gone up. We got them in 2000.
But lumber's also gone down, hasn't it? Or has it gone back up again?
So,
well,
it might be better for you girls to just drive down here and buy one and haul it back up there.
2 years ago. She said it was 2 years ago.
Wow.
Now, one thing with the rainwater is that we would have changed is when we decided how many tanks to get. We looked at our average usage at the house we were in, our average monthly usage. However, we did not account for drought, and that has bit us in the butt twice this year. So we wish we would have put in a third tank. We may still put in a third tank, or we may, depending on what was off the well.
We figured our average usage was less than 5,000 gallons a month. So we thought, well, we'll get 5,000 gallons. We'll be fine. Yeah, we didn't take into account that 5,000 gallons is great if it's raining.
If it's raining, yes.
And so,
and we've had, like I said, we've had 2 droughts this year, and that was.
Yeah, typically our droughts are during the winter and during the summer. Spring and fall, it just rains nonstop.
Yeah.
But it got really dry over the summer, and we had a really dry winter last winter. Mm-hmm. So we'll just have to see. But we've. This is one of those adjustments of being off grid. We've had to learn to conserve water when we need to and use water when we have it. We can take longer showers when it's raining, things like that. But we've gotten pretty good at it.
Yeah.
So there are several videos on our channel on the rainwater system we had set up. If you guys had any additional questions, go on there and watch them. Post your questions. I'll get them answered. Urban's Dirty Finger from Reddit said, how do you prioritize what you do first in terms of both creative comforts and creature comforts and on the food production side? We don't have a schedule. We do what needs to be done when it needs to be done. So one day I work on the house. The next day it's like, well, we got to work on the fences. The next day, well, we got to work on the road because it rained and it washed out. And it's really hard to prioritize when you have so much to do. You just do what's needed at that time.
And sometimes we have different ideas on what's more important at the moment.
Yeah.
So like I'll be working on something or Tim will be doing something. Tim's like, we're doing this today. I'm like, I'm not doing that with you because I have these other things I have to do, or vice versa. So that's kind of been a challenge. Honestly, at this stage, and really if you have a farm, everything's a priority and there's always stuff.
I think it's funny. You guys go to the Y, I think, to shower and stuff like that every now and then. When we first got together, we lived in a mobile home. It was a piece of crap,
bad.
1972, 12 by 50 junker mobile home. And we had a water leak. I didn't know where it came from. So we're investigating it. And I went outside. You had to get the water tank from the outside of the home. And I went in there and just pushed on the tank and it fell through the floor. And we followed that rot and it went clear under the whole bathroom. So we had to pretty much gut the whole bathroom in February or January, something like that. And then we had to go into into town to shower and stuff for a couple weeks when we were trying to get it fixed and back up and going. But it's crazy. So yeah, we don't have a set schedule on what we want to get done. We just kind of do it when the time and opportunity presents itself. There are things we had to get done. We had to get the house enclosed in. We had to get power, water, things like that. But now that all that's done, everything is kind of slowed down to where, well, I should be doing that, but I'm going to go do that. It's
and also it depends on what the weather's doing. It depends on the time of year. It also depends on other work because, when we've got other irons in the fire, when obviously you have to prioritize what pays the bills. So sometimes we have to set things aside for longer than they should have, kind of like the fencing. The fencing for the animals, that took us way longer because we needed to do it in the winter because we have a lot of poison ivy, and we couldn't because we had something big come up elsewhere that we had to handle and we had to deal with.
We still don't have all of our fencing.
No, we don't have all of our fencing because life happens. We've had to move things around, and now it's wintertime again, so we can hopefully get that next section of fencing done. But you do what you can, the best you can, and trying to focus on what's
focusing hard sometimes.
Absolutely needed right now.
Defiant Increase 2016 from Reddit said, for where you live or if someone's looking to relocate to another state, where is the best place to go for building structures, logging, remodeling, well digging, solar, etc.? We live in Kansas, so luckily the building regulations outside of the city are not strict. They're pretty relaxed. Like I mentioned earlier, I only had to get two permits to do our house. Only had the one inspection. There's a lot of others on YouTube that are doing houses too, and they're much more restrictive areas. Breakheart Orchard is one that we've talked to and known for quite a while now. Their rules up there, they're in West Virginia. It's crazy the stuff they have to go through. I watch some of those videos. I'm like, what? That seems like the silliest inspection I've ever heard of. But they're required to do a lot of extra stuff that we don't have to do.
So if you're in the county, call your county agents, your county office, your county seat, whatever that is. If you were in a city, you need to call City Hall and find out. If it's something that's dealing with like wells, livestock, things like that, call your counties, or not your county, your state's extension office. So here, Kansas State University, that is really where all the extensions meet. And it's amazing. They have amazing resources. I call them for rules on making jelly, for eggs, for all this stuff with livestock. They also have places you can test your water. Your county will have an extension office, which also feeds into that main state one. So the extension office is really amazing. And the nice thing about at least ours is that they don't know, they will say, hey, I will email you back, or I can find out for you. So you definitely want to call those places. Another thing is
county planning and zoning, and ask questions.
Don't just do it, because sometimes they will make you undo it, and that's going to be very expensive. So it's better to find out what the rules are ahead of time, so
Same guy asked, if buying raw land, how do you best determine where to build your home? There are things you look for in order to make such a decision. Again, like I said earlier, we want to be isolated from neighbors. We didn't want to see them. So we're surrounded by trees. We didn't want to build somewhere where we could look out our window and see even lights. We don't want to.
We had very judgmental neighbors.
Yeah.
The last place we lived.
The last place they were in your business. They were always in your business. It was awful. So we picked our spot because we had to clear a lot out, but there was a section where the old house used to be that had completely surrounded by trees. And then we had good shade from the winter storm. So just north of our house is a big row of trees that's pretty close. Yeah. And then the south side is pretty well open for our solar gain and things like that. So,
and there's a field, cropland there. So we can see a lot.
Natalie's dad makes these.
My dad was a potter for 40 years.
Yep. So our house is full of his pottery.
Yep.
Yep, this is one of my favorite mugs. I got 2 mugs I use all the time.
And he's not happy when it's missing. No. Where's my mug? Who used my mug? So back to that question on where to build our home. in this area, you need to also, well, at least where we are, you need to look at floodplains, kind of where the land is, water flow, things like that. We've had to kind of change a few things. But there were 3 places that we looked at, building sites that we looked at. And it was actually funny because where we are now, this is the first place we looked and we're like, we don't like this one. And then we went to the other ones and we came back, we're like, we like this one the best.
I don't think we knew there's a foundation here at that point either, did we?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think we did.
Yeah. Because, one of the areas. We
also didn't know there was so much rock out here.
Oh my God. Well, it's weird because the area that we live in, we've lived in different houses around here, and there isn't any rock. And where we grew up in the Flint Hills, and there's tons of rock there. We're not in the Flint Hills anymore, but we've got major bedrock here.
Kim, we've been trying to get Barry to do pottery for a while now. He retired 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years ago next year. He retired from doing pottery after 40 years. And we've been trying to get him to well, we'll buy you the kiln, we'll buy you the stuff. You just go out and make some pots. But his
hands are in really bad shape. So
yeah, he threw everything. He was a real potter.
Yes, that's what So I had we both had non-traditional childhood. So I grew up going to shows. That's what we did. So in the summer, and we went to shows. So we did. Did we
finish that one? Oh, windbreak.
So so windbreak, solar gain. That was something too. Is we wanted to have the option to have the house positioned in a way to be somewhat solar passive as well. We didn't have as much with when we had to change our house plans, but that was a big thing. And then also to be able to see sunsets. So we've got a good view off to the west to see the sunsets.
Yeah, we've asked him to teach us, and that didn't work either.
I didn't ask. I grew up in it. He's asked.
I've asked.
Asked.
So all I gotta do is get a shed. I'll just get a shed, and we'll just make it your studio. And there's not much. I mean, I guess I understand after 40 years, I think he's done.
He's done.
Same guy said, in your opinion, how long should you look at property before deciding whether to buy it? We've lived in the area we moved to this area in 2004.
Yes, 2004.
So we've been in this area for almost 20 years. We had a pretty much good idea of what the surrounding area was like. But their question is more on, I think, if you're moving to another state or another location, to know the seasons and things like that.
Okay, well, let me backtrack. So this was something that Tim and I, when we bought the land, it was before the pandemic, and our plan was to build the barn, live in the barn, and then build a house. And the plan was to...
So my grandpa was a pew-pew. I'm thinking like Star Wars. Pew-pew.
So the plan was to actually live in the barn to see the seasons, to see how we wanted to position the house. Now, as far as the land itself, when we found it, we jumped on it in a heartbeat. It was kind of like, holy cow, there's actually land for sale. Because we've been looking at different pieces of land, and it's like you kind of get to a point of indie land you can get your hands on. You'll make it work.
Yeah. Yeah, land's getting harder and harder to come by. So I would suggest that you do your research on where you want to go, so you know the rules. Say, okay, this county is acceptable to what I can and can't do, and then just focus on where. When we found our land, we wanted to have the trees and the live water and things like that. So I basically went through aerial photos and looked at all the land plots, and saw ones that had water and had enough trees. And then we focused in on those and contacted the owners and just asked them basically. And I think 100 letters later, we finally got one after a lot of,
don't ever talk to me again.
Don't ever talk to me. And,
which I'd be that way.
Yeah. There's some, you get a lot of pretty rude no's, but that's expected. We would do the same way.
I would be the same way. Yeah, I would be.
But it only takes one.
Yes. G4HU
from Reddit. Did you pick your location for sufficient rainfalls to sustain your homestead year round, or do you have a secondary source? In general, how do you source water safely and consistently?
We've kind of touched base on this a little bit in the previous ones.
Yeah, we
have had to haul
on
water.
A lot of this.
We've had to haul water from town, and we bought, how big's the tank? We bought a 500?
5,500.
55.
No, 550 gallon tank to haul water.
Yeah, so we bought a 500 gallon tank because the first drought we had, we didn't have, and that was in wintertime. We did not have that tank. So I was not able to do laundry for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, oh my God. It's like, okay, we got to do this. So we had to do something different. And like they said earlier with livestock, they go through a lot of water. So you have to do that. And then we had fruit trees. So we were hauling water up from the creek. And so we did have to do that. And we do have to haul water. Now, some places like the county south of us, I've talked to some different farmers there. And this is also where we grew up, is sometimes the local co-op will sell you water. They have big tanks. The one here doesn't. So we've had to do it. So sometimes your local co-op or even other farmers will have ponds for that purpose, and they will haul water. Now, what we that's not exactly drinking water, pond water, but that would work for plants and things like that. A co-op that would have treated water.
Like I said earlier, we are planning on adding another tank. Yes. Potentially. We've already kind of figured out where we're going to put it, but it's going to be outside, so it may not be usable during the winter, but we'll help get us through the summer anyways. I just got to figure out how to get everything to flow in there the way it's supposed to. Yeah. As far as a secondary source, we do have the well we didn't break yet, and I got everything plumbed to it. I just haven't had the time to get it set up. Yeah. It's on my list. How do we source it safely? All of our filters. I mean, everything comes from, the roof, and it's fine. The water actually tastes really good. I mean, we drink it all the time. But if we have to get water, we get it from in town, and it's filtered and it's your city water then. So we don't really have an issue as far as having consistent water. If we need it, we can just go and get it.
But we have a very serious filtration system, so it's very clean water.
Yeah.
And we've had it tested. We've tested the water in the tanks. We've tested the water once it comes through the pipes, and we've tested, all the bathrooms and
different
everything.
Locations throughout the house.
Yeah. So we have done that just as a precaution too.
Yeah, Heather, those lists just never end. We just keep going and going and going. We have a whiteboard in the office, and it gets filled up sometimes. And one time I went through and I printed off a bunch of sheets of paper of a to-do list, and I think we finally got through that.
Most of it. Now we have more. It's never ending.
Jason Shepard from Facebook asks, what do we use to search for keyword searches to find valuable information on YouTube videos? I've always had this mindset. There's a lot of information out there. It's hard to know what's good information, what's bad information. But I've always used a general rule of, if I can find 3 people that are doing it the exact same way and they've been successful at it, then it'll work for me.
There's a lot of groups and forums too. And, if there's people that are suggested, then, that's another, like with goats, I just found another group, and it's like, it's just like, it's with anything, whether it's a hobby, whether it's livestock, whether it's a business, you find the people, the communities that recommend people or whatever. And that's really where you find a lot of the good information.
Yeah, definitely asking around, like I said, the 4-H extension offices, place like that will give you ideas. You can take those ideas or keywords that you've learned from them, because it may have a term that you didn't realize. Search for that on YouTube. You'll find a lot more. But once you find one video and you watch it, YouTube's algorithm will pick up on it, and they will show you similar videos like that. So you may start looking at rainwater collection. Before you know it, you're looking at all these other videos on rainwater collection, but are slightly off to you learn so much. So once you get the ball rolling, you'll get a flood of information. And
once you start getting a little of information and your knowledge base grows, you will be able to determine who has the correct information, because you'll be like, I already know that that's not correct, so I'm just not gonna. That person's gonna go, or that company, whatever's gonna go in the back burner.
I kind of wish we didn't set up here now, because it's just so.
I know. Sorry. Just listen to us.
Yeah.
Just listen.
We have lights facing us because knew it was going to be dark, but it's just
dark.
It's still snowing. So. Straykat Nick from Facebook said, how many kilowatts are you generating from your solar setup? So a lot of confusion.
What I'm doing.
Huh? Yeah. You guys' videos always look fine. I've watched your stuff, and I can actually see it. We look like we're ghosts right now. So on the solar setup, a lot of people get confused that the size of their array is how much they're actually going to be using in the house. We have 15.36 kilowatts power coming from our solar array. That is just used to charge the batteries. And so the bigger your solar array, the faster you will charge your batteries. We could have had, a 4,000 kilowatt system on the roof. It just would take a long time to get our batteries charged, especially now. In fact, I'll tell you what how much we're bringing in right now.
Jumping over, hope we won't lose anything. Something too is, I don't know if you talked about this, but last year, whenever we we had like negative 18 degree, we did buy a backup generator.
Yeah, so we have a generator to use.
We do have a backup generator.
So right now, even with it basically in whiteout conditions, we're bringing in almost 2 kilowatts from the solar panels right now. On a sunny day, it'll be pumping in, anywhere. Now the charge control is regulated so you don't overheat your batteries. So even though I have 15.3 kilowatts, it's going to slow that down so I don't melt our batteries. But usually we're pulling in between 10 and 12 kilowatts when the sun's out, and that will charge our batteries usually within about 2 hours, about 11 o'clock or so. They're usually full. So anyways, the size of your array doesn't determine how much you're going to be using inside the house. That's just used to charge your batteries with. We have basically a 6.8 kilowatt inverter that can surge up to 8.5 kilowatts for 30 minutes or 12 kilowatts for 1 minute. So rarely do we go over that 6.8 limit. We'd have to have the air conditioner going. The pump would be on. Now he's using her dang heat gun.
So I shrink wrap. I use biodegradable shrink wrap on the soaps, and I have to use a heat gun, and that thing causes more problems in this house than anything. We've got 2-3 freezers plugged in, the refrigerator, another refrigerator, all this stuff, and I turn on the heat gun. It's like the end of the world.
So we have 2 kitchens. We've got there's 2 refrigerators, two freezers. We have 3 freezers, but the third one's not plugged in right now. The pellet stove has been going all night. We use a lot of power. Something
that to think about if you're going off grid or wanting to do is, we have for the main kitchen, we have a gas stove. But if it's sunny, so in my soap lab, my laboratory, we have an electric stove. So if it's sunny, I'll go use the electric stove.
When I built the house,
when it's sunny, we turn on the HVAC to heat the house. Right now, we don't have that on. We have the pellet stove going. So you have to have these. You have to
the boiler
really,
downstairs and the pellet stove.
Yeah, and you really have to think about, okay, what is it doing today? It's not automatic anymore. When we were in a typical situation, you just go turn the heat on, turn the AC on, whatever. Go turn all the lights on, whatever you're doing. And now it's okay, what is it doing today? What is it doing tomorrow?
What can I do today?
What can I do today? And
can I do laundry now?
I know.
In the evening if it's going to be cloudy in the morning.
Yes.
You got to always look a day ahead.
Yeah, and laundry, like you said, I did a couple loads yesterday. It's okay, well, we're getting a little bit of sun, and otherwise it's you have to do things, and that kind of goes back to that priority list of some things you're just going to have to wait on because it's raining or it's cloudy, or hey, it's sunny today, so we're going to jump back onto this and do this project instead because we have this.
Heather, we have 24 full river batteries. They're all 2 volts, so we're on a 48 volt system. So if you add up the 24 times 2, you get 48 volts. And then it's 150 amp hours, if I remember correctly. And these are AGM batteries, so they're sealed lead acid batteries. And we get a lot of flack for using lead acid batteries. But the reason we did that is
2 reasons.
Well, it's a couple reasons. Yeah, the lead acid is 100% recyclable. When I'm done, I can take those batteries down to the recycle center, and 5 to 8 years is their typical lifespan, and I'll get money back for those. So they were cheaper to buy up front, and I'll get money back, and they're 100% recyclable. If I would have gotten the lithium batteries, they're not 100% recyclable. They're about 60%, if I remember correctly, 60 or 70%. And the amount of energy in the toxics, chemicals like that it takes to try to recycle that lithium is not very good. It takes a lot of energy to try and get that out. So it's not a very green type of battery. Where lead acid, you can just, there's so much greener.
And the other ones are a lot more expensive.
Lithium's ridiculously expensive.
And the other thing is technology with anything. Technology is growing exponentially.
Yeah.
And across the board. So it's like, okay, if we do this now, when it is time to replace these, what technology, what type of batteries will be out there? Mm-hmm. And, if we replace them with the same thing, okay, 5 years down the road from then, what technology is going to be out there that we can take advantage of?
We also baby our batteries quite a bit. So you don't want to go below 50% on a lead acid battery because that will shorten its lifespan. We've done that twice, and it was by accident both times. But typically we get down to like maybe 60% or so, and then we get them charged back up. Now that's the big downfall to the lead acid batteries, is not being able to discharge them as much. Mm-hmm. Where on a lithium battery, you can go down to 20% and you're fine. So we can go below 50%. It just shortens their lifespan, and we're wanting to extend that as much as we can. So like that typical lead acid will get you 5 to 8 years, where lithium may get you 8 to 10 years.
That's not a whole lot more. I mean, really, it's like, okay, what's the cost difference too? It's like, okay, can we get 2 sets of lead acid for 1 set of the other?
Yeah, that's
like, that's thing too. Well, that goes back. It's like when pellet stove. You can go back and look at our videos on the pellet stove. We researched a lot of pellet stoves before we bought the one we did, and we did end up with a less expensive one, because the lifespan, from reviews and what people are saying, the lifespan on the cheaper one was just as good, if not better, compared to the ones that were very expensive.
Yeah, the fancy ones, the $4,000, $5,000 pellet stoves.
Yeah,
they would crap out on people within 3 to 4 years, and it was the same thing on the one that we got.
So it's like, you'll start having a problem in 3 to
4 years. So why would I spend all this money? But I could just
and you could
that pellet stove was $800, $900, something.
It's amazing.
Like
It's
I could buy 4 of those for the price of one of the better ones.
And that pellet, I'm looking at it's it's
right
there. It's awesome. Yeah. So that's something that you really need to think about. Yeah, it is warm in here. So, and it's very, very.
Yeah, it's like negative something outside right now, and
it's warm.
Warm in here right now.
It's warm. All right.
Do we answer anything on the solar one?
I think so. And then some. Anabelle Whetney, Facebook, how do you manage and move your water? We did talk about that a little bit with the other one. Some of this is redundant information, sorry, because we like to ramble.
We elaborate on other questions when we
do.
This one
sorry. Okay, so Tim has run the water down to the barns. So we do, in the beginning, we had to haul buckets from the creek not for drinking. But with the barns, we actually do have rainwater collection there. We've got some stock tanks down there that we use, and that was actually kind of nice to use that to water trees. Mm-hmm. But we do have spigots. What do you call them? Hydrant spigots. The
garden hose.
These bibs. Ones. We have those down there, so that is a lot easier.
And the barns are at a lower elevation than the houses, so we only have a 1 horsepower water pump at the house. But because the barns are so much lower, the water pressure is fine down there because we have the gravity assisting. If they're 250, 300 feet away from the house, our barns are. So if those were higher in elevation, that pump would have a hard time going that far and going uphill. But because we're downhill, there's plenty of pressure down there to get water out for the animals and things. But yeah, we've had to haul water in buckets a few times.
A lot.
What kind of pumps do you have? Well, like I said, I just bought an off-the-shelf Tractor Supply 1 horsepower pump, and I bought my pressure tank from Tractor Supply too. The pressure tank pretty well crapped out right away, and we ended up getting another one.
That's definitely old school, bringing water from the creek. Yeah, that was really fun.
Oh, yeah.
So that's been fun. So there's a bridge. We didn't have to do it this year, but that first summer before we had any water,
Hello, little Idaho.
So my daughter and I had to crawl down under the bridge with buckets and hauling the buckets up, and That was
we
fun.
ran a hose off the side once. We had a little portable pump. We ran a hose off the side that was able to.
Yeah, and that first summer we had, was it Ryobi? Just this Ryobi?
Yeah, it was Ryobi one. And then that died on us.
What do you call it? Like a little sump pump thing. And we actually used that in the well that first summer. So, we did that, and different pumps for different applications. That's the same thing. Okay.
Yeah,
we haven't. So really, it's the same pump for all of that. And then once we get the actual well going down by the barn, we do have to get something different. And that's kind of that's something that we need to think about too with electricity, because that well is going to use a certain amount of electricity. So we kind of have to think about how that's going to work. So we'll get that figured out too.
I think we're fine there, because the chances of them all being on at the same time is going to be pretty slim.
Yeah.
I saw something I was going to talk about, and I forgot what it was now. Okay. So her next question was, how do you keep the cisterns or tanks clean and critters out of them? It goes through 2 filters before it even gets into our tanks. So the off of our roof, we have the gutter guards, and they're pretty good gutter guards. They're not like leaf guard. Those people were ridiculous expensive. They're kind of a higher grade one that I bought from Home Depot, and they keep 90+% of all the, actually they probably keep more like 100% of all the large debris out. Anything we get in there is going to be really small. And then I have a catch basin after that. So when it comes down the gutters and then goes into my 6-inch pipe, which goes into the tanks, right where that 6-inch pipe's at, there's it's a pool filter basket basically. Now it'll catch anything large, leaves, bugs, stuff like that may happen to get in there, which we haven't had any of that since I put the leaf guards on, or the gutter guards on. So, and the tanks are inside, they're not open air. So we don't have any problem getting any bugs or any of that stuff in there anymore. It's that first year I was cleaning those baskets out.
That was before we got the gutter guards on there.
And then before it goes into the tank, or before it goes into the pump, there's another really fine filter there also, a debris filter. So we don't have any problem with anything getting into our tanks. What do we use for filtering our water source? We can drink it. That goes back to that Aquasana Rhino. It's actually a well filter system, but you can add on, if you call them, they can kind of customize one for you. So if you have high iron in your water source, things like that, they can give you special filters to help filter all that stuff out. But just that Rhino system was 5 separate filters, which include a post filter, carbon, descaler, I think, or pre-filter, post filter. And then there's a UV light. And we signed up for their filters for life. So we get a discount, and they just send me the filters when they're due. So every couple months I get like a new pre-filter, and then every 6 months I get a post filter. Every 5 years we get the main filters, which we haven't gotten to that point yet. Yeah. And they give us a discount being part of their program. So it's pretty easy. I just wait for a filter to come in that I know to go change it.
One last thing to think
about. Solar pumps for our well as backup. We don't really need to have a solar pump because we have wires run from the house. When I dug the water line down to where the pump's going to be, I also put a wire in. I think it was a 10 gauge wire I ran down there, a 10-3. And so it runs off the house's solar. So I actually have power where the well is whenever we get it hooked up.
Yeah. Next year.
We keep saying we're going to hook it up. And
I know.
Next question was, do we have an overflow on the tanks? Yes. So the tanks are in our garage, basically. We call them, we call it the pump room. So as the tanks fill up, when it gets to the very top, I put an overflow pipe on it, and that overflow pipe just goes directly to the outside. So you'll see in several of our videos where it's kind of fun to watch it because it overflows and water just dumps out there. And that's how we're going to try to hook up our third tank if we ever get to that point, is figure out how when it overflows, it will fill up the third tank. And then we can somehow get that water back into the main tanks later if we need it. Just kind of have it reserved.
How often do you overflow? When we get a lot of rain.
When we get a lot of rain.
It does it automatically.
Yeah, when it fills up, it just overflows.
Yeah, just pops the cap off and.
Yeah, it's just a 4-inch PVC pipe, and it's not pressure. It's just like a sewer pipe, so it's thin walled. And I just have a cap on it, and then when the water fills up, comes down the overflow into that pipe where it hits that cap, and as the water pressure builds up, it eventually pops that cap off, and it just drains out everywhere. And all I got to do is remember to go out there the next day and put the cap back on. So the cap goes back to the previous question about critters getting into our water supply. If the cap was off, there's a good chance we would get bugs up there. We could get a snake crawling up that pipe. We'd end up with snake inside our tanks, things like that. So that cap's important that we put that back on every time it overflows. But yeah, we get heavy rains in the spring and the fall. It overflows all the time. Gary Campbell just asked, do you drink the water? Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Drink it all the time. It's great. Actually, I think it tastes better. It tastes better than rural water. It tastes better than city water.
Yeah, it does.
It almost
that city water. Yeah.
It almost tastes like a bottled water, I don't like, but
it's good. We have a Tiffany.
I'm trying to think of a
Hi,
name
Tiffany.
right now. Hey, Tiffany. So yes, we drink the water all the time. We have been for quite a while. Like now I said earlier, we do have it tested. There's a university that we take it to, and they'll test the water for us.
And that's something you can talk to your extension office. They have usually testing places, things like that. You can send things to. Okay, Korgan Rivera. I'd like a financial breakdown from when you got started to where you are now. Wants to know if we inherited the land or was born rich, or if we earned it. We earned it.
Yes. We were not born rich.
No, we are very, very frugal, like insanely frugal. Like even our kids now, it's like, I don't know if they've even owned any brand new clothing. So
you had any brand new clothing?
Have you had brand new clothing? No.
Our daughter's over there watching.
You know, it's like we both grew up in hand-me-downs and shopping around for the best price on things. We've never owned a new vehicle. Everything has been used. No, we're insanely frugal. You know, when we paid for our schooling, it's taken a long time to get to where we are, and a lot of discipline. And like we don't go out to eat. There's a lot of things we don't do and we haven't done. And things that we've done too, it's like if we're going to go do XYZ, we will save up for it to do that. It's not something it's like, oh, you know, whatever. It's like, okay, when we got married, I made my own wedding dress. And
I went to the thrift store and bought a tux
that
was like 10 sizes too big for me.
That was so funny.
So I had to like all buckled up, stuff like that.
He spent $8 on his tux. Yep. And I made my own wedding dress, and we got married in Arkansas in Eureka Springs. It was beautiful, and I think it cost us maybe $50.
Yeah.
And then we went camping. And then we took our honeymoon. Ivy. Yeah, he got poison ivy. And
really
then
bad.
We went on our honeymoon 6 months later, and we saved to do that. It's like everything that we've done, we have saved for. And really before our honeymoon, when we went, we ended up going to Florida, and we stayed at my sister's house for the first part of it. Then we went on our little trip, and then we went back and stayed with his aunt and uncle. But yeah, it's you know, in the first house that we were in together was how big was it?
That was a 12 by 50, we said a little bit ago, the 1972 mobile home. I bought it for $4,000.
I
bought it for $4,000, and we did some renovation. That was probably the first house we flipped. That's another thing. We've gotten to where we are now because
we did do the flip thing.
The flipping thing.
Yeah.
That definitely
so we moved into a house. We
bought a foreclosure.
And we live in it while we fixed it up, and then we kind of went, and then we also worked. We've worked full time. Yep. That first home we were in, it was literally like living in a tin can. We would get up at 5 a.m. and
2 by 2 by 2 were the walls. So the walls were like that thick.
It was terrible.
Hardly any insulation in them at all. The windows were just like the crank down ones. So like you have these veins that go down, they'd seal like that, which they didn't seal at all.
No.
So we had snow blowing in a few times.
So let me tell you about the first Christmas present I got. One of the first was a toilet seat. Because it was so cold in that house in the wintertime that I would put my hands down because the toilet seat was so cold. It was so cold. And that's.
So I bought her a padded toilet seat. That was a little that was her first Christmas gift.
Yeah. So that's kind of how we got here. Is we were extremely.
Should have kept the toilet seat.
We're extremely frugal.
Seat,
I know. So that's. We did not inherit this. We were not born rich. We absolutely earned it.
Earned every penny.
So, yeah.
And also, like I said, I went into the military, and that was probably a big game changer for me because that gave us consistent income. Because we were together when I was in the military, and that gave us consistent income and kind of helped to get us started.
And we worked. I mean, like when we worked, when he was in the military, you were doing other stuff, and when I worked at the bank, I was also working at a fitness center and teaching. So it's like we've worked multiple jobs. We've worked full time and part time.
I've always said I'm not above flipping burgers if I have to.
Yes, yeah. So we
haven't had to yet, but I'm not above doing that.
No, we have worked really hard.
Hey Gary, he's been watching our channel for a while now.
You two are amazing at DIY. I think a lot of it has to do with how we grew up and where we grew up. I think growing up in the 80s and not having everything at your fingertips, you've had to figure stuff out, I think. And growing up in the country and having a lot of free time on your hands.
We just talked about this with our girls last night about just electronics and stuff like that. It's like, we were kids. We just went out and did stuff. We just
went outside. Well, it was interesting. I was actually talking to my sister, and she's got some younger kids, and she said that she got irritated because one of them said that she was bored. And my sister's like, I don't remember ever being bored growing up in the country. And she lives in a city now. And she's like, I don't remember ever being bored. But we didn't have internet. We didn't have, we had Saturday morning cartoons, but we didn't have any of that stuff. You
sound like old parents.
We do. We do. So
maybe a little off track on that one.
We did. See, this is why I'm not in videos, because this is what I do. I'll ramble. I got side stories.
Not proud or tired from Reddit said, are you completely self-sufficient? And if not, how do you find what you need to buy? We produce our own power. We get our own water. We do buy propane. We do buy most of our food. We have a garden. We harvest chickens. Plus we get the eggs from the chickens. We buy meat from local farmers and from 4-H people that we know. We also hunted this last year, got a deer. We're not quite to the point we can be 100% self-sufficient on the land. Our garden last year was dismal.
Yeah.
We're not quite to that point we can go all in and get all of our food from the land. I don't know if we'll ever quite get to that point. I don't know. That's pretty big task there. How close are you to your nearest neighbors and what's your relationship with them? We kind of went over that a little bit ago. There's neighbors around us. We're in the country, but we have people around and we know them. We can contact them if we need help, things like that. But we're not really on a come over and have coffee kind of basis with them. Really, we're fine with that.
And they're fine. I think it's just when you're farming, you're busy. And I think people sometimes, they'll get together. But I think, I don't know.
If they need our help, we'd help them. If they're there, we just don't converse with them.
It's not a bad relationship. It's just it's just how it is. So
same person said, how close is to your nearest community and what's your relationship with it? Like I said, nearest major town's about 20 minutes away. We do have a community that's a little bit closer, but they don't have the shopping or the things that we typically need. It's a small town. Now they went over medical needs earlier. There's a local sheriff. We've had to go to the hospital before. It's not an issue where we're at. I can understand if you're in Montana or something, or Alaska, and you're hours away from anything, how that could be an issue, but we don't really have to deal with that. So
no, we're not. No, we're not.
Same person asked, how long have we been off grid? And what did we learn about thriving off grid?
I think we've answered the second half.
Yeah.
Really.
I started building the house in 2019, and plans changed in 2020 because of COVID, because this was not our original layout.
No.
We adapted things, moved things around so we could get in here. We were fully moved in around Christmas 2020, and we had the spray foam done, I believe.
Yeah. It was, not really until the next summer. Wasn't it?
Well, that's when our rental was up and we had to move everything out here. But I mean, you and me and the girls.
Oh, the girls,
we were living in the camper out here.
Yeah.
We're living in the camper in most of 2020. I mean, I was out here before that.
Yeah,
but
Tim was out here full time, and the girls and I, we had to go back and forth because school. We didn't have internet. We didn't have a washer and dryer. We didn't have that kind of stuff. So kind of, yeah, so winter 2020, spring 2021.
But yeah, as far as living off grid, it's not hard. Like I said, there's a couple things you need to adjust as far as conserving power or water when you need to, but for the most time, we don't feel like we're sacrificing anything. We don't feel like we're missing out on anything by being on grid. I mean, like now I said earlier, there's a snowstorm going on right now, and a lot of people we know don't have power, and we're just fine. So
really just the biggest thing is being aware of what you're doing when you're doing it. Yeah, my dad lives with us, and sometimes I'm like,
yeah, he doesn't get it.
He doesn't. He has a harder time with it. So he'll be 9 o'clock at night and he gets a vacuum out. It's like, Dad, you can't vacuum right now. Well, why not? Well, he's done. It's like, you can't vacuum right now.
Well, or he'll throw the dishwasher on. The dishwasher will run for like 2 hours, and that's like consistent, a pretty good amount of power being used. And he'll do it like on a cloudy day in the evening. It's like,
don't do that. So things like that. Or I will get out the shrink gun.
Yeah, she'll get out her little.
But I've got to do it. I got to take stuff to a store. I have an order that came in. Yeah.
Gary, the pellet stove is doing great. We were just talking a bit ago how it's like negative something outside, and we're getting hot in here right now.
It's hot. Yeah.
So no, the pellet stove has been. I mean, I've been super impressed. But the upper floor of our house is, it's 2,000 some odd square feet. It's over 2,000 square feet, and the main area, it's all open. It'll keep it. We've had it up to like 80 degrees in here and had to open windows and stuff. The difficulty is getting it to the back of the house where our bedroom is at. And you'll see in some videos, I don't know if I put that one out here or not, but it's where I had to try to run ductwork back to the bedroom. If it's not out now, it'll be out in the next couple days, I think, or next week. But that's the only difficulty is getting that air all the way back to our bedroom, which is, 50 feet that way. Downstairs, we had the boiler set up, and it keeps the radiant floors just toasty down there. It's always warm downstairs.
Yeah, it is. It's almost too warm. That's something that we've had a hard time figuring out, like with the Mr. Cool system. When it's sunny, we've got the air conditioning going or the heat going, is trying to figure out that right temperature. Is the temperature on those? They need to fix that.
The thermostat on the Mr. Cools is
they're
just
terrible.
Horrible.
So we haven't been able to get a good idea on how to do that. And I think kind of with us being frugal, growing up that way, if it's wintertime, I want to dress for winter. I don't want to be running around in a t-shirt and shorts. Yeah, so sweatshirts. In the summertime, it's like I want to be wearing shorts. I don't want to, be freezing. So, kind of going back to the frugal thing, when we lived in town, it's like in the summertime, we usually had our AC set at 80. So we're kind of used to that.
Okay, one more question. One more from this person. What do you and your family, if you have one, do for leisure? We're no different than any other family. We like to walk the land. We play games. We watch movies. We take a trip every now and then, stuff like that. So we're not any different than anyone else as far as our leisure goes. I don't think we're doing anything different.
Yeah. It's interesting because my younger sister came to visit, and they live in a very small apartment, and they travel a bunch. They live in Colorado, so they go on hiking and stuff, and they have no interest in buying a house, which is fine. But for us, it's like, this is our vacation. This is why we bought the land, because we can just go out our door and go for a walk. Like when we lived in Kansas City all those years ago, that's why it wasn't a good fit for us, because we couldn't just walk out our door. We had to drive 20 minutes to go to a park. Yeah. We had to drive somewhere to go do something, where here we can literally walk out our front door and go see wildlife, go for a walk.
The wildlife is usually
go see stars, things like that. So this is kind of our vacation, I guess.
We literally have herds of deer out here.
Oh my God, there's so many deer.
There's so many deer. We have it's kind of a joke. You look out in the field and
there's
there'll
like
be 20 some deer there every night, and
yes.
they'll be in our front yard. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
So this is the last question from when we asked for it online. This is from Miss Ann 24801 from Reddit. Do you have plans for when your kids get older and bigger, but they are still minors, to get more pressed for space and alone time? No. I mean, our kids are teenagers now.
Well, almost one of them.
One of them almost teenager. And no, our house is big enough that we all have our own spaces. We have enough land. They go out and, the girls are down at the creek a lot, or they'll climb trees or go to the barns and hang out with the animals. I mean, we're really not. We're more concerned about when everyone leaves, what we're going to do then.
It's going to be sad. I'm not
It's going to be sad. We're going to have a big house and no one in it.
Well, we already said you had to come back.
Yeah.
You can't leave.
Yeah, my whole star is like, Dad, I'll come back and have coffee with you. So, but no, we're not worried about the house or being lonely. We're not cramped or anything like that. So I think a lot of people think when you're off grid that you have to be in this little shack and you're all shoved in there together and it has to be tiny in order to make it work.
No.
One of the things that building our house, we did not intend our house to be this big. It was not supposed to be
this was supposed to be the barn. This was supposed to hold trailers and
shop space and crafting space and stuff like that. This was not supposed to be the house at all.
It was not.
It's got this big because we adapted it to fit our house during COVID. We didn't feel comfortable building something else. We just didn't know what the financial future is going to bring. So that's why that goes back to being frugal, I guess.
Yeah.
So we decided to adapt the barn into the house, and we ended up with a lot more space than we needed.
And being frugal, actually the couch that we're sitting on right now. So the couch that we're sitting on, we sold the mobile home a million years ago, and we bought the couch, which we are still sitting on. Yeah. And I mean, all this furniture we have, we've had it forever, or it's something we've gotten.
Is 18 years old.
It's old.
17, 18 years old, and we're still using it.
Yes. So yeah.
How many times have you sewn the cushions back?
Oh, I know. Yes, I sew things. This is for the cats, and I know. So we take care of things, and like what Tim just said, sewing things. I keep sewing this couch back together.
We're done with the questions online. So if you guys watching have any questions, Heather, my mom used to live right next to us, and she loved the fact that the kids could run over to her house anytime they wanted. And we've been trying to get her to move out here on the land. We opened up a spot where she can do that, and she's just not quite at that point yet. So maybe in the future we'll have some videos of us working on her house down the road. Cliff said, do you plan to put up greenhouses to grow food? We touched on it a little bit earlier, Cliff, where we do have the basement from the old house that used to be here. We plan on building a greenhouse over the top of that so we can have a winter garden, since it's 60% down in the ground, and help keep it warmer during the winter months. Hopefully we can grow some produce, maybe not over the whole winter, but we can at least get our vegetables and things started probably in February versus March or April.
There are some of our friends have high tunnels, things like that, because they would be needed here. Not
in the wind. Holy cow.
Well, no, and that's been damaging. What kind depends on where you put it. There's kind of this fine line about how much we need to produce for us, and then the excess going to the market. We don't want to make that another big business where we're having to produce all of this for just the market purpose, because we're so busy as it is. So yeah, we do want to grow food for us, but not necessarily so much that it's another job.
At the farmer's market too, we've got friends there, and they give us a lot of their produce that they can't sell, things like that. So, we do a lot of bartering. Well, Natalie will swap some soaps or things like that. We'll get a whole bunch of zucchini or something. We'll go make zucchini bread and things like that. So, I think because
a lot of it is swapping. So, a friend of ours, they have because they've got peach trees and things. So we went out and they just go pick some. Just give us a jar of jelly. So I picked some, made jelly or
because they had so many peaches that they're not going to pick them all. They're just going to rot in the trees. They're like, hey, go out there and pick them all before they rot it out. We had another question just came in. This is from Maximum Product 1252 on Reddit. Said advice to those about producing with very limited funds, or purchasing with very limited funds. Maybe 1 to 5 acres, something else. You can't do anything without money. I mean, if you've got limited funds,
that's a very, very hard subject to talk about, especially right now when things are so insanely expensive. We started down this path a very long time ago. This isn't something that just happened overnight. It isn't something that happened even within the last 5 years. It is something that we've been working on for 20 years. It really is. And I think a lot of it too is maybe how we grew up. Somebody had said, learn to be frugal when they were younger. Our parents didn't have money. So I remember sitting down with my dad and helping him pay bills and seeing that. And I grew up with hand-me-down clothes, shopping at Goodwill, things like that. So this is not something that has happened overnight. It is something that we've really, really worked hard for decades to accomplish and to save.
I think what he's asking is, what would we compromise on if we didn't have the finances or the funds to buy a place? So would we lower our acreage? Would we buy a house or buy a property that didn't have a house and build things like that? I think that's what the question is. Is more geared to. I didn't read it right the first time.
Less acres, yes.
Yeah, well,
I think a lot of it is also where you want to be, because there are if you want to do this in Colorado or California, it's going to cost you an insane amount of money versus say Kansas or Oklahoma or Arkansas or Nebraska, Missouri, places like that. There, North Dakota, South Dakota, there are very, very expensive places to live, and there are places that are not as expensive to live. So it also comes down to if you're willing to relocate.
Yeah, the cost of living here is cheap compared to other places. Yeah. As far as the cost of land goes, once you get above 20 acres or 40 acres, I guess, the cost per acre really starts to drop. He asked about lowering your acreage. If you lower your acreage, you may not actually be saving any money, because sometimes you can buy
up. The cost per acre goes up tremendously with the smaller amount of land you get.
If you get a smaller lot somewhere, especially closer to a town you may pay more for that lot than you would if you got 40 acres and you're 30 minutes outside of town. So really lowering your acreage may not really save you a whole heck of a lot.
Another thing is this land had been abandoned for a long time, and it had a lot of cleanup to do. Something else is looking for...
We're still cleaning up.
Well, and this will take a long time to clean up, but, looking for pieces of land that need work. Maybe something that's not desirable. If you haven't watched the movie, The Biggest Little Farm, that came out, I don't remember how many years ago. The Biggest Little Farm, look up that movie. They actually have an Instagram page and different things, but that one was literally a dead piece of land that they brought back to life. If you're willing to do the work to find something that's not desirable and do the work to bring it back to life, then it can be a great place to live and grow.
Oh, one thing too on the land, someone asked earlier about picking your land. We had looked at lots of different land places trying to buy. One of them that we came across, there was a quarry was a half mile away. There was a quarry, and I looked through the county records and found out that the quarry actually owned the land adjacent to the land that we were looking at. And then now, granted, we're 10 years
Probably
later?
10 years past that, yeah.
That quarry is now in the land right next to where we were going to be, and they're ripping it up to get rock. So
look into that.
Yeah. When you're buying land, look at what's around. Don't just look at the land and say, well, I want to get this because it has water and trees and all that stuff. Look at who's around you. If it's a company or a corporation or whatever like that, especially if it's like a rock quarry like we ran into, don't buy it, because you may end up with hearing explosions and jackhammers and stuff all day long as they're getting the rock out.
Yeah.
We dodged a bullet there. Cliff asks if we're planning to put up wind turbines. I would love to get wind turbines.
We have a lot of...
I just checked, and we're bringing in about 3 kilowatts now. The snow's lightened up a lot, and I can actually... Well, I could a little bit ago. I could see the sun through the clouds. But it would help out a lot because it's windy right now, and we could be generating more power that way. Overnight, we typically lose about 10 to 15% battery capacity throughout the night. And but we have a lot of wind here. And so if I even had, 1,000-watt wind turbine hooked up, we could potentially lower that from 10 to 15% down to like maybe 5% loss at night. And that'd be really cool. The problem we have is that wind turbines, they're pretty noisy. I haven't found one yet that we could probably stand. we've looked into some vertical access ones, but they typically don't produce enough power just yet. They'd have to be going full speed, and they're only getting like 500 watts. So if anyone knows of any wind turbines that would work, that'd be great.
They're quieter.
They're quieter, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be fairly close to the house in order to get the power. I don't want to trench, 1,000 feet through rock. So we have to be pretty close to the house. I don't want to hear it all night long. That's cool. You guys got a wind turbine. I'll be definitely watching that video. See what you guys got. There's Missouri wind something not too far from here. There's another channel that we watch that's just really close where they are. I think they've got a wind turbine from them too. But anyways, they mostly have the horizontal, the typical blade ones. I just haven't found one that's quiet enough. They say they have a quiet one, but I want to see it in person. You really can't take someone's opinion for it because their idea of loud may not be your opinion of loud. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 1,000-watt wind turbine would be
that'd be nice, especially at night, because that's something too with like in the summertime, the air conditioner. You've got to turn the air conditioner off at night, and that's something that you have to kind of get used to. Mm-hmm. So.
Luckily, because our house is so well insulated, it's not really a big deal.
Bad.
Even in the wintertime, we may have the pellet stove going, but then we'll shut it off at night, and it'll stay comfortable. 65, 70 degrees in here all night long, and you're just fine which is actually great sleeping. 60, 65 is great for sleeping, anyways. But the house stays warm. Yeah, adjusting to the noise may be something. I'm really curious now that you guys are doing that to see what you end up with and how that works for you. So why wait till spring? Just go shovel some snow and hop on it. Oh my gosh.
No, thank you.
Well, we are out of questions. So if you guys have any more, I'll give you a couple seconds to type that out. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and close this.
Sign off.
This was a lot more successful than our last live.
I think the last one the internet went off at 12 minutes or something. I don't know. Yep. What the deal was. We have a better spot.
Yeah, just again, sorry for it being all washed out white. If we do this again, we'll have to pick a better spot. We were hoping you could see the wind and the snow and everything, but now it's not.
Just the noise of the trains. Oh, we do have some trains that they're not too far away.
No, we do have a train track that runs about 1.5 miles from the house, and you can hear it in some of the videos. You'll hear a rumbling in the background and maybe a toot of a horn every now and then, but
it's interesting. Our last house, we actually had train tracks pretty close, and I thought it was kind of because I never grew up near trains, so it was kind of exciting.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, it's a train. So,
well, thank you guys, Heather and Kim, and who else we have near Cliff and Carl and Gary and Tiffany. Yeah. So thank you guys for watching.
If we missed anybody, sorry. Thank you guys.
Yep. Bye. Have a good. I don't know what day.
Happy holidays.
Yeah,
it is December 22nd.
What day
Have a good winter. I don't know. Thursday.
Yeah. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Bye.